Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today, I don't want to talk about a specific book that I read, but rather I want to do the usual wrap-up and TBR for the month of May and for June. And I feel like in May there were a lot of pretty solid books. I made a mistake in terms of reading one thing, which I'll talk about when I get there, but it's a pretty funny circumstance. I should also point out that we are about at the mid-year mark, and so, you know, reflecting on what I read in in this year so far, I think there are a lot of solid reads that might end up on the end of the year list, the best of list, the 10 dopest reads I read, or what I happen to call it. And so some of those books are Gender Queer, the graphic novel, which I thought was amazing. Kite Runner, which is probably definitely going to end up on that list. That was a really fascinating story. Pride and Prejudice, which will probably end up there. And I don't know for sure. I'm pretty sure something's going to take it off the list, but it'll at least get an honorable mention. Walk Two Moons, which was about it was a Newbery book that was about the girl recalling something that had happened to a friend of hers while she was on a trip with her grandmother and grandfather. Pretty solid story, especially young adult fiction story. And I do think it's pretty good, but I don't know if something's gonna surpass it. If 9 other books might end up doing that, but we'll see. It's I think it's a bit too early, and there's bound to be something in August, September, October that really knocks me on my butt and it gets me to consider other things. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading more, and I have some fun things planned for June. So without further ado, let's talk about the wrap-up and TBR, and I'll move on from there. So what did I read in May? In terms of books, I read The Last Vampire on Earth by Mandy Abraham, which I thought was fun, but very bad. So bad it's good kind of read. Mandy Abraham doesn't really stop time to let you think about anything that's happening in the story, and some of the plot elements are a bit weird, and I don't think the themes work as well as Abraham or another writer might have intended. So not a good story really, but still fun if you're looking for something bad to read. There was also Congo by Michael Crichton, which I think is probably the best of the month. Very interesting science fiction story, dealing with new technology, capitalism in Africa, and primate research and things like that. Michael Crichton is a very talented writer, definitely overdoes it much of the time, but Congo is still an amazing read, and the things he has to say about neo-colonialism in Africa really stand out. And I think, even in the present day where we're still trying to exploit Africa, that hasn't really gone away. His writing is still pretty poignant, so definitely recommend that. I also read Batwoman Elegy, which I thought was a pretty average story. I felt like it did a lot of things about exploring Batwoman's past and showing how different she was from Batman, but I don't think that they did a good enough job of really diving deep into that sort of story, which is what they were intending. So not that great. Funeral for a Friend, the Superman story, I thought it was boring, largely trying to explore a world without Superman, but not really doing that in a compelling way. I think there is a compelling way to do it, and they didn't really land there. And it's heavily flawed because you have all this emotion for a character that you're just going to bring back within a year. I think they did the same thing with Batman at one point. Oh no, Batman's dead, what's going to happen? And you don't allow enough time to pass to see what will happen and how a world functions without this hero. I don't think they really accomplished anything in that regard. And so I think it really ends up sinking the entire arc, which is unfortunate. Not really worth seeking out. But I am still going to read the last part of the arc, which is the return of Superman, the reign of the Superman story. We'll see how that goes. And then I also read Road to Perdition, which is interesting. I put down the graphic novel, but I accidentally bought from Amazon the fleshed out novelization. So it was a graphic novel first, turned into a movie. It has a novelization, and now I'm reading the furthered novelization. So there's a bit more story there. So it's interesting. I did like the story, but I would have loved to have seen it in a graphic novel format. So I didn't really make a video about it, but I will probably make one once I read the graphic novel, and maybe I can also compare the graphic novel to the book and see which one stands up better there. So that gives me something to sort of focus on. I also read volume 17 of Berserk, which I thought was pretty excellent. I do think the story is kind of picking up, especially with the Holy Iron Cross Knights sort of arc, so I'm really eager to see where this goes. And as per usual, I still recommend that you go out and read Berserk from the beginning. I also read This Mournable Body, which I thought was intriguing, but a very puzzling story. It tells, one of my biggest problems is that it tells the story in the form of second person narration. It says the word you a lot, which puts the reader in the mind of the character, the main character. But it also gives the main character a name, possibly because it's part of a series, like a disconnected sort of series, but one that is connected in some sort of way. And so, like, I feel like if you give a character a name, you can't use the you second person narration, because we are not that character. Maybe I'm missing the point there, but that's how I sort of feel about that. It's still an interesting story, exploring, a person trying to find their way, establish themselves, and be financially secure in Africa, and struggling along the way. So I didn't really know how to talk about it, so I didn't make a video on it. And then I also read A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. I thought it was pretty cool, especially how he explains the origins of the universe, and quite educational as well. I don't think I fully understand what physics, because he doesn't really shy away from talking about the physical side of things. He makes it kind of accessible, but not. You still need a background to fully understand the entirety of A Brief History of Time. But I do like that Stephen Hawking respects the reader enough to not really talk down to them or anything like that. So and I always love reading about space and the Big Bang and things like that. So pretty solid read. I also read a number of short stories, including At Twilight by Susan Glaspell, which I thought was okay. Hotline Girl, which I thought was a pretty good short story. Absent, which I thought was pretty good and terrifying, given that one of the characters falls into a well and is forgotten about and dies that way, given they are a pedophile and whatnot, so that's not ideal for them. But it's kind of justified, or it's justice for them to suffer that way, because they were trying to harm a child, and that child turned around and did something evil to them, which they deserve. But I do recommend it. Go check out the video if you want more details on that. And then another short story called Paradise, which I thought was pretty good, highlighting the need to leave your small town, and also touching on LGBT ideas and themes there. So go check that out. And then I read a number of poems as well, and I have been starting the period of Pride, which goes from late May until the end of July, where I just talk about LGBT writers, poets, and things like that. So be sure to check out my Poetry Thursday playlist if you want more information, if you want to check out some queer writers. Now, what do I intend to read in June? I have a lot of things planned. What I'm reading right now is called The Logger Queen of Minnesota by Jay Straddle, which is a pretty interesting book. I think I'm probably going to like it. After Tupac and D. Foster, that was on my 2025 TBR. It's young adult fiction. Looking forward to that. And then Tess of the D'Urbervilles, which I got from my local library. Don't forget to patronize your local libraries. They might have classic books. Looking forward to reading that. I think it was recommended to me a while back when I was reading like Emily Dickinson and other writers. Yeah, be sure to check out that video when I make it. The Return of Superman, which is actually interesting because that's part of the arc that I've been exploring, but I went to my library, I found that one, and I was like, wait, did I miss something in terms of the arc? Because I thought the Reign of the Superman was its own specific entry, but it turns out it isn't. It's just the Return of Superman. So I'm going to go read that, and then I should be done with the arc, and I can give my full thoughts on whether or not DC succeeded in creating a compelling story for the death and return of Superman. My guess is probably not, given what happened in Funeral for a Friend. But that's beside the point. We'll get to that when we get there. Some library reads, graphic novels, and a story that I marked on like a bookmark on my computer for a bunch of books that sound interesting. Something called The House of God. I can't remember what it's about, but actually I think it's about medical professionals in Israel, sort of a satire of the medical industry over there. Sounds like it should be interesting, and maybe a bit weird or something like that. I also have a number of short stories planned, including some by Amy Rose Capetta and Chris Lee. Should be interesting. And then a number of poems as well, which are by LGBT poets. So looking forward to talking about all of that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the wrap-up and TBR for May and June. Very much looking forward to reading some great things, and I'm really happy with what I've read so far in the year. If you have any recommendations for me, if you want to make a suggestion or just comment on something that I read before, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and get some interesting recommendations from things you might think that I enjoy. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this channel if they don't already know. Join the Discord if they want to have further conversations about these sort of things. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and pride-based travels. Farewell.